there's a service bar in every restaurant. When you're working service bar, it's like a thankless environment. You're there just making drinks for servers, for tickets for tables and stuff. So
You don't see a guest. No one sees you make anything.
if you watch us make the drink, right, and you see all the work that gets put into it, before you even taste it, you're like, oh man, this is gonna be awesome.
Right. All right, this is Brocky here, Whiskey and Kicks. I'm at Service Bar in DC, Washington, DC, with Chad and Glendon, co-owners of the Service Bar. How you guys doing?
Good. What's up, Rocky? How are you?
Hey man, I'm happy to be here. I just want to start off to say that I spent many Sunday fun days in this place.
Excellent.
And which catapulted you guys to the top of my list when I started this podcast. So I'm really happy to be here, man. I really want to present to the people what I've been getting all this time, especially through the summer.
Great.
Thank
Well,
you.
we're
Thanks for
excited
thinking
to
of
have
us.
you.
Yeah. So introduce yourselves, man. And Chad, where you from originally? A little bit of your history.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania, in a small town called Clark Summit, which more people actually know of now because the Olympic figure skater Alan Rippon is
That's right.
from the same. I mean, I didn't know him or anything, but same age, same area. I came to DC. I went to college at GW, so I came down for that, and I've basically just stayed since. When I was in school, I started working for the Founding Farmers Restaurant Organization.
It's a great spot.
Yeah, it's a great place to learn as well. So I was actually Glenn's bar back when I started there.
Oh, okay.
I was
Back in the day.
Yeah.
All right, we were skipping ahead a little bit. Okay, good. That's great. That's great. All right,
Well, I mean, this was a long time. I was 19 when I started there, so it was a little while ago, and I grew up with that organization for a little while. After that, I mean, a bunch of random stuff. I started a consulting group that didn't work out with a couple individuals. We did a project out in Maryland that was kind of interesting. Came back, helped open Chaplain with the Wilder Brothers, a few other things in between, but those are kind of the main things. Then Glendon and I have run a consulting group together for 4 years. He actually started it before I came back, but then I came on board, and basically the two of us just started taking it over together. And we had some really awesome clients through that, and some very big projects, some small projects, and that's basically what led us to opening Service Bar.
I know you guys built a lot of relationships with that.
Along the way, a lot of relationships were built.
Yeah, that's important.
Definitely.
So-
Very good ones as well.
Yeah, I bet. So your background, where you from DC?
I was raised in Montgomery County.
Okay.
Born in the U.S. Have been back and forth working in DC and Maryland, like kind of bartending for most of my career. Then, I guess before any of this, I went to school in New York and tried to get a job up there, and it didn't really work out so well. So I ended up working for the Founding Farmers Group to learn more about alcohol and, how to make different things and, basically the preparation for everything that is alcohol. And that's kind of what led me on a path to learning about spirits and meeting new people and making cocktails and training people, and which led to what Chad was talking about, us just like doing menus consulting.
Okay, so the process of you guys actually making the decision to start your own spot, how did that go? How was that process?
So I think that
It's a story behind
Yeah.
it.
Well, there was one particular thing that really catapulted it.
Yeah.
The Marriott project.
But is one thing that my father always said, is like when people open a business, means they have like an excess of something. Like you have an excess of something, like you have a farm. So like let's say you have a bunch of carrots, like you can't eat all those carrots, sell those carrots. We were at a point where we had an excess of knowledge of how to open places, and we were teaching people how to open places all the time. And it made sense for us to just do it for ourselves instead of continuously doing it for other people, which we still do. We still consult. But there was a specific instance that we were involved in that kind of catapulted.
I mean, and in addition to that, I think that the consulting was always a means to an end of opening a place.
For
We
sure.
wanted to use that not only because it was profitable at the time and so on and so forth, and like you said, we still do it a little bit on the side, but the idea was to get a lot of experience, but without taking that real initial risk. And we had gotten to a certain point where we were probably comfortable, but I don't think that either one of us would have really jumped to say, okay, we're ready to open our own spot, let's do it.
Yeah.
Marriott had come out with this project called Canvas, and the idea was to drop a bar that's in a shipping container into a few locations around the country, and you were to apply your bar concept, and they would pick the winning concept for each one, you would run it, and then they would try and incorporate you into a longer term sort of contract.
Okay.
And we actually submitted one from Montgomery County and won, but it was a very bittersweet phone call because when she told us that although we won, the liquor board shut down the project. So
wow.
we couldn't actually do it, and that really led to nothing. However, that kind of gave us a bit of an itch. We didn't really start like looking, but opportunities would come up. So we explored one thing on H Street, turned out to not be right. And then shortly down the road, an old friend of ours, a better friend of Glendon's, was good friends with the landlord here.
Oh.
So the landlord reached out to him. He reached out to us, said, hey, I think you guys are ready. I've owned places before. Do you guys want to run the operations? I'll handle teaching you a lot of the owner side of it. So it seemed to be a great pairing, and it all kind of worked out from there.
Doesn't it make sense though? Now it's
it makes
you guys couldn't be anywhere but here.
We couldn't do without this.
It's such a great space, with the private room in the back with their own window to the bar and everything. You guys have a really great thing going on here. So as far as establishing your spot, did you have any? I'm not sure how it is in DC. Did you have any? Were you guys really welcomed by the bar industry when you guys started?
We've gotten extremely lucky with that. So I was very heavily involved with the Bartenders Guild, and just in general, like Chad worked for the Farmers Group for a very long time. Basically, what they're very good at is training bartenders and putting people out that can actually do a job. Chad trained a lot of those people. I also trained a lot of those people, and before consulting, I've done a lot of beverage programs around the DC area, so I've trained a lot of people along the way. So I guess leading up to this, I was kind of in charge of one of the Bartenders Guilds of DC, and that is kind of, I had to leave that to open this. In that respect, a lot of people have come here afterwards. So we get a lot of patrons that we've trained before, people that they've trained, and then the industry comes here in a big way. And I couldn't ask for anything more than that because they've supported us along the way. Literally, one of our friends, bartenders, was like, we will not let you fail. And that's probably the best thing that you want if you're opening a place.
That's dope.
Yeah, it's been a huge support system for us in many ways because that's your 1 o'clock to closing crowd. It's people that are getting off work and coming in here. And it's not just because the two of us have had influence in the industry over many years. The people who we've hired here are also those people that you go to see. That was our number one question when hiring. We're like, what makes the best bartender? And it wasn't who's the fastest, who makes the best drinks, and so on and so forth. Like, yeah, sure, those qualities all count. But at the end of the day, the question we asked ourselves is, who would you go see at any bar, serving any drinks, in any atmosphere? Like, you're literally going to talk to them and engage in their personality.
And would you go hang out with at a bar?
Right.
Exactly. So, I mean, all the other people that work here bring just as many other friends and influencers and people that they've made in their own personal networks as well. So it's a really awesome team effort, and we just have a crazy awesome team here that helps that too.
That's really
We've
good.
also got people that have established themselves in the industry for a long time, and we needed people that could think outside of the box on different types of cocktails, different types of spirits, so we could give that to the guest.
I mean, I could stay here. We could stay here for an entire day. I'm serious, man. I mean,
and not drink the same drink twice.
And not drink the same drink twice. And you guys would see things that you just don't see in other places. And I love this place. You guys, you can feel that. Yeah. And when I first came here, I remember what's the stuff you guys put in? You shake it around the smoke.
Liquid nitrogen.
Liquid nitrogen.
The whole counter's like covered. I'm like, what did I stumble into? So
you get the
so
for
I'm
$7
used to it.
nonetheless.
It's a fantastic experience, and that's one of the things I love about here. So please explain this heaven in the glass that I'm drinking on right now. What do we have here?
Excellent. So actually, one of the things that led to us opening this place is I opened a bar on H Street with a friend of mine, with some random owners. They're really nice guys, but basically they gave us carte blanche on order whatever you want.
Okay.
It was basically how I was brought on as a consultant was, this is a blank canvas for you, build a restaurant out of this. So that was my first taste of building a bar from the ground up. And that place was Ocopa, and it was a Peruvian restaurant.
Oh, okay.
So this is Pisco, Peruvian unaged grape brandy, and it's named after the Ocopa dish. So this is the Ocopa cocktail. The Ocopa dish is a purple potato cocktail with this legit green Ocopa sauce. It's delicious.
Purple potato cocktail?
Did I say that?
Yeah.
For a potato dish. For a potato dish. With their green ojo
Let's
sauce.
try that.
So this is Herba Luisa, which is like a Peruvian tea. It's a lemongrass based tea, so you get a little bit of that citrus. We used clarified citrus in there, so you're not hit over the head with like a very forward citrus punch. It's kind of like in there subtle, just to balance. Then you have a little touch of Saint Germain, and then pisco is the main flavor in there, nice and floral. So
Why is this your favorite?
it's my favorite because I tasted all the flavors separately. It's one of the first times I tasted all the flavors separately, and like, you know, all these together would make a fantastic cocktail if it was done correctly. And I've had people that have had 4, 5, 6 of those, and they're so easygoing and really easy to make, and it's just delicious.
Dude, it's a great cocktail.
Thank you.
This is a delicious cocktail. You have any input on this one here?
No, this is so a little known fact about our menu here. It has a lot of elements to it, but the main bulk menu that's categorized by spirit, like gin cocktails or whatever, every single one of those was chosen because it had some significant piece of history with us in our past experiences.
Yeah.
So we could go through the whole menu, and I could say like this was one of Glenn's signature cocktails at Ocopa. That was one of his favorites he wanted to bring here. Now, obviously, none of them are from active consulting projects, because we've like sold the drinks. But a lot of my drinks that went on the menu, I had made on my own menus at Chaplin's upstairs, or I did when I had the other consulting project, or I've just kind of done on my own, or we were working on a few different things together, or so on and so forth. So that's kind of how we had the center of the menu built, which I think is really cool. Not many people know about it. And we were originally gonna almost put all the stories in the menu, but then we thought it would come across as like
Our menu's
too
already kind of
pretentious.
done.
I
Like,
understand that.
Someone like, oh, you think this story is so cool. So we ended up not doing that, but you could point to any drink on our menu and there is a story behind it.
I have a few drinks listed out. We'll get into that in a few minutes.
Excellent.
So, conceptually, when you guys were looking to open a spot, did you guys want a small, intimate location?
Yes, definitely. We know what we're good at, and we also know how to open a place.
Okay.
So we've consulted on so many projects.
Oh, you knew what
We
worked.
knew that we didn't want something that was too big. Like this, to be honest with you, we wanted something like half this size. But
Oh, wow.
when we came in here, when we're working in it now, we're like, this is the perfect size
Right.
for us. We wanted something smaller than this,
Right.
which is kind of the size of the shipping container
Right.
in reality. But we came in here and kind of like fell in love with, you know, how it's set up and like how cozy it is.
Yeah.
And we brought different elements like the snug. I was in Ireland for about 2 weeks and visiting whiskey distilleries, and then we'd go out with the people that were giving us the whiskey tours to different Irish pubs, and they always had a snug. So we're like, we love that element.
Yeah.
Chad loves going to the Irish pubs because they're the most comfortable bars you can go to, and you can always meet a friend, and it's always welcoming. And that's the main thing we wanted here. And
Okay.
that's why it's like small and cozy.
Any specific things that you guys add the snug?
Yeah.
We
Oh,
had-
okay.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
doesn't
that
look
built in.
anything like it was
Right, I can only
before.
imagine.
I mean, there was like you would have to step down to get to you could see it now, right? This was one building at a point. This was a building at a
Oh,
point.
right.
And the
The kitchen
kitchen was
was
a building
another
at a
building.
point.
Oh, okay. So like
So-
3-row, kind of like
Yeah.
row homes or whatever.
So I mean, this is
Basic
like
home.
3 spaces glued together with a lot of gaps that had to be filled in and problems like you wouldn't believe. But it's a cool space, and we basically put everything here ourselves, design-wise, and we did everything our own because we wanted to do this on like a lower budget. We had to do it on a lower budget, I guess you'd say. And there was just some elements that we took, like he said before, you know, an Irish pub was something that we had looked towards.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't want this to be an Irish pub, and we didn't want to ever describe it as an Irish pub. But when people would say, what's your inspiration for some design elements? Those elements came from there. So like this wood, for instance, that's something that you commonly find in an Irish
For
pub.
sure.
We didn't want to do like a really dark brown, so we did this more orangey brown, which has a lighter feel to it. It keeps the space a little bit brighter. We did the blue on the walls, which is a really strange thing, but we've just always liked kind of the color blue in the space. We thought it wasn't as aggressive as like a red might be, so on and so forth. And so, I don't
Also,
know, I mean,
this place was painted red.
red,
When
yeah.
you-
Yeah.
It looked like
That's
McDonald's.
tough to paint over.
It was terrible.
That's a lot of primer there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what we said to ourselves is we just want to make a place that we would go and hang out and be really happy with. If we're going to be here every day,
right,
we want it to be somewhere that we're really proud of, that we could honestly say, I want to go there and hang out on my day off because it's exactly what we want it to be. Right. You don't have to wait forever to get a drink. It's not like a stuffy environment. It should be a really fun bar first, and that's the focus, regardless. You know, if we put PBR on tap, not that there's anything wrong with that, and only serve rail drinks, we wanted to make sure that this place would still be successful, even without the cocktail program, without really awesome food. It should just be a fun, cool environment, and then the great product almost comes second. It's like, you should walk in here, this place is great. Oh man, also really awesome drinks, food, I'm staying.
We wanted it to be a neighborhood bar. I think it's probably the only thing to touch on. Like, we wanted anyone from the neighborhood to be able to come in here and be super comfortable. So this is a neighborhood bar, and it's also a cocktail bar. It's a neighborhood cocktail bar.
And, you know, look, when I was trying to get you guys on for the show, so I'm here. You guys open at 4 o'clock, right? 5 o'clock. I'm here at 5. And by 5:15, the place is full. There's people all over the place. And I was like, this is incredible, you know what I mean?
People get us on their way home from work.
Yeah.
Very happy about it.
Perfect spot. So that's a good thing.
Come and unwind.
Well, what am I about to drink here, Chad?
This is our Margarita Al Pastor. This cocktail came from, we were doing these regional menus for a while, so we'd pick a different culture's kind of culinary scene, and we would shape cocktails and do some research around that. So this one was part of our Mexican menu. The idea is Al Pastor tacos, some of everyone's favorites. Basically, it's a vertical spit roasted pork shoulder that's been marinated with annatto seed and some dried chilies. Once it's roasted over charcoal and wood, it's shaved off with some roasted pineapple that will usually be at either end of the pork, and that's the base for what the taco is. And it's always been one of my favorites. I've been always intrigued by it. With this cocktail, it's kind of like a pineapple margarita, but we treat the pineapple like pork. So we'll rub the pineapple with annatto seeds, we'll marinate it in a little bit of vinegar, some dried chilies. Once that marinates overnight, we'll take it out and we'll grill it over charcoal and wood. And then once it's grilled, we'll blend it back in with the marinade that it was in overnight. And that becomes the base for this with white tequila. There's a little bit of raicilla, which is another spirit that's made in Mexico, but it's not tequila. It's usually from the same region, but it's using a different type of agave, a different type of production method. And it has this kind of like almost rancid, acidic flavor note to it, which just gives this cocktail a really cool layer. There's a little, super funky, super funky. And then there's a little bit more lime juice and fresh pineapple in that as well.
I'm gonna drink it.
It's got a little bit of that chili, but like the actual roasted flavor.
Right,
like,
it's like
not like a lot of
almost
heat.
like something that you wouldn't eat.
Exactly.
You know, but it's a cocktail.
It's straight up culinary cocktail right there.
So that kind of goes into my next thing. You guys are, I can tell you guys are kind of big on presentation when it comes to creating cocktails. We got the footage of you guys making the drinks and everything. So just a little bit of what's your approach to that? I mean, you know, presentation goes a long way, but at the end of the day, it's about how the cocktail tastes and everything. But I appreciate that.
It was a long road for me per se to getting to this point. I've been an artist my entire life. Like when I went to school for fashion and was more intrigued by what I was learning with the science of making cocktails and things like that. But presentation has always been a huge thing for me. So working with a few, restaurants down the road, you can make a fantastic cocktail. You can make the best tasting cocktail ever. If it doesn't look great, people aren't going to want it. People aren't going to drink it. Right. Because a lot of let's say most of what you smell has to do with how you taste something. Right. But a lot of how you taste and perceive a cocktail has to do with how you are visually stimulated by it. And doing presentations like this are going to visually stimulate you, and then you get to taste what we're actually presenting to you. Right. And it'll give you like a 4D experience, essentially.
Okay, that's a nice explanation there, man. I mean, I enjoy it. I sit here fascinated watching you guys creating these cocktails every time I come here or whatever.
We go over presentation all the time. Like,
right,
it's
for sure.
It's a lot of what we try to accomplish here.
Right,
it's presentation in all forms. The taste, the aroma, how it looks.
Well, I think the challenge is too that it has to be something that can be done relatively quickly as far as if it's like a garnish or whatever else you're doing with the presentation. And that's really where the barrier comes in, or filter, if you will, for what you can do to make a cocktail look great. So it's figuring out what are those things that we can do that look really cool but are fast and easy. Like for this, for instance, this is a great looking drink, but it's great because it's in a traditional clay pot, which sure, we have to find that. We have to figure out where to order them, make sure the dishwasher's safe, so on and so forth. Right. But then once we have them and they're there, all it takes is pulling it off the shelf like any other glass to have this really cool, unique presentation for it. And I think that's one of the reasons we have a ton of different kinds of glassware, because that's one easy step in making your presentation a little bit extra without having to take too much time on the fly. And then other things like, these garnishes, it's just a pineapple stalk, but we just cut it with the frilly scissors or whatever you call them. And
we use those scissors when you're making pants and clothing.
My mom has some of those scissors
in
the drawer that she never used back in the day.
And when we were opening this place and another place, I was like, oh, I could definitely use those scissors on whatever garnishes that we have.
Right.
A lot of other people are using them too. Probably before I put that together that I could use it. But
so what's up? Now you're talking about garnishes. It's like I'm seeing the fruit, like oranges or lemon. It's kind of like burned. How do you? What's that all about?
We dehydrate a lot of fruit here because for our Tom Collins, for instance, as an easy example, we do a freshly cut lemon slice, like a lemon wheel you would see in 900 other places. However, at the end of the night, we'll just take those, whatever's left over, and instead of throwing them away, we'll pop them in the dehydrator, and then the dehydrated fruit, it can last on the shelf for a very long time. So it helps us to reduce waste. It gives another kind of cool looking garnish. But then also they float in drinks because there's no water weight. So if you were to take a daiquiri style cocktail or something served up with no ice and try and put a lime wheel in it, unless you've cut it paper thin, it's gonna fall and looks bad. But once you dehydrate it, it goes right there. Yeah, and so it's essentially free for us. Our dehydrator has 7 sheets that run 24/7, whether it's our kitchen uses it for some of their stuff, but then we have a lot of different stuff at the bar that we use for it too. And things like pears or apples, you can't really do a fresh pear or apple garnish because they'll oxidize, turn brown, get really mushy. But we slice them, put them in the dehydrator, leave them for a couple days, pull them out, and then we have that to use as a garnish.
The pears are actually one of the best examples of how we operate here, because as Chad said, we're not trying to produce a lot of waste, so we use pears in a number of ways. We'll take the pears, we make apple a pear gin and tonic, we make a pear syrup with it. Right now we're making a saffron and pear puree, but then we also take the pears and we dehydrate them. So we try to use everything that we bring in here at least twice. Okay. Citrus we bring in, we'll juice it, we'll use the skins for something, we'll dehydrate it, that way it can stay for longer. We have them sitting dried out. They're kind of they can make a tea essentially at that point. We always try to cross-utilize everything that we bring in.
And when you dehydrate, that gives it the brownish look there?
Yeah.
It can.
It depends on what we want. Like our limes, we like to be a little bit darker because it has a cool contrast between a bright green outer rim and then a almost burnt center. But with the lemons, we do it at a lower temperature for longer so that they're not quite as burnt. So they look a little bit whiter the whole way through. But yeah, if you turn the dehydrator up high, it essentially burns the sugar that's in them and caramelizes it to a dark brown.
Okay. All right, that makes sense.
Whereas if you keep it at a low temperature, it'll just evaporate the water without really caramelizing too many of the natural sugars.
This is why I'm on this side of the shelf and on that side of the shelf. So you guys create all your own syrups and everything too?
We do syrups all day.
All day. So
yep.
It's a great thing.
We literally have a person that it's their job just to make syrups. So we come up with syrups, we conceptualize things, and then it's executed.
Yeah.
And the egg white foam that you guys have, I can just drink a glass of that shit by itself.
It's really good.
Yeah, it's just egg white, sugar, a little xanthan gum, and then we just charge it in the whipper. Yeah, our program's pretty involved because a lot of places I think that have a cocktail menu our size are primarily classic cocktails, which a classic cocktail, there's only really a limited number of ingredients that you're using. So about 90 to 95% of our menu is all original drinks. Mm-hmm. There's a few classics put in here and there for particular reasons that we really like them. However, I think that it's very, very rare to see a menu as large as ours that's using as many different ingredients. Right. So I forget what the number is, but I think if you're standing at your well behind service bar, between the juices and purees or whatever that are kind of below in your well, the syrups or other sorts of prep items that we have on the top, your speed rail, and then what's behind you, and then our side rails we have set up. We have about 135 different ingredients that are within arm's reach, which is...
You can reach everything from here. So we have glasses sitting up top, so whoever's behind the bar, you never have to leave that area
Over here.
to do anything. Bottles on the side, bottles in front, bottles on your right side, and then glassware right above you, and then right in front of you.
Okay. So I just want to tap something real quick, and I'm doing this selfishly because every time I come here, I ask someone about the drink with the cilantro ice cube, even though I know it's regional.
Oh, nice.
And I
Oh,
say,
yeah.
I fucking love this drink. I'm like,
That was with this guy. They were in the
Spring
same region.
Fling, yeah.
amazing drink.
No,
was
no,
it?
no.
That was
Spring-
culantro, right?
Well, no, that was You Had Me. You're thinking of You Had Me at Culantro. That was like a culantro daiquiri. You're talking about the Spring Fling, which is blackberries, bourbon, lime, and then it went on a cilantro ice cube, and then we had the cilantro blossom. Not bourbon, rye, actually.
Yeah.
I think it was Rittenhouse.
Yeah, Rittenhouse.
And then it had cilantro blossoms on it. Yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll bring it back soon. But it's once the cilantro blossoms come back into season is when we could start doing that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna continue asking every time I come back.
A lot of things we do are like super seasonal. It's funny how like our seasonal menu is kind of like in the front. So we have our all-day menu, which is meant to be our all-day happy hour, $7 cocktails classic. Then we have our seasonal menu, which are things that just come in and out of season. We get emails every week about different ingredients that are coming in. Can we use this? Can we not? So that was one of our seasonal things, but if you go past that, you get to all the other stuff, and we can add that back onto the seasonal because it's literally like we need those cilantro blossoms. So like, it's technically a very seasonal cocktail.
Classic drink, dude.
Yeah.
I think that's when I fell in love with you guys.
A lot of people,
So,
a lot of people fell in love with that drink.
Yeah, man, that's a hell of a drink right there. And
Yeah.
it's just, again, the presentation and everything. I've never heard of a cilantro ice cube, so it's like, it's pretty dope. I'm gonna run off some words here, some names, and
Man, I see the first one on your menu.
yeah,
That's
with some drinks that you guys have on your menu.
It was funny.
Wisp of Smoke. This shit is bananas. Whiskey old fashioned, and a Parisian bubble bath. Now, what goes into your approach to the titles and names of these cocktails?
Yeah.
So the Wisp of Smoke, it's funny you should bring that up as the first one, because we're going to take it off the menu because we feel like it's not we can't figure out what the purpose of it is anymore, and it's probably too much to really get into, but I don't know, I think it's more of a matter of changing palates. It's something that I thought was a really good drink a few years ago, and now we changed one product with it, and then we didn't think it went right, so then we went back and we just tested it with a bunch of other stuff, trying to go back to the original version, and we just don't think that it's really hitting quite as much of a note, but the name came from the fact that it's mostly a Calvados-based cocktail, but it has a little bit of scotch in it, so it's like literally just a little kiss of smoke.
It's a wisp of smoke.
So that's the Wisp. This shit is bananas.
The shit is bananas is like a banana cocktail. So that's another product that we use in a multitude of drinks. So what you see here, it was really funny once I was watching a documentary on Star Trek. So you always see people like typing stuff or whatever in Star Trek, but you never see what they're typing. And I was watching this documentary, you go behind the scenes and they have these weird little whimsical things written on all these buttons here, like push this to make a fart sound or, whatever else that happens. So what you see on the menu is not necessarily what gets printed out on your check, because we have a cocktail, and then when we put it in the computer for us to ring up, we write whatever we want. So we named that drink, it's a bourbon cocktail. It was for our bourbon menu, and we named it like the brown
Then we
banana
go to
or
brown
something like that,
bananas.
which sounds terrible.
Yeah.
But we couldn't think of anything at the time. And then when I was putting it in the computer, I'm like, oh, Gwen Stefani, like the shit is bananas. So I put it as the shit is bananas in the computer, and then we were like, yeah, we should just put that on the menu. We also had a drink on the menu called Basic Bitch. Like, the Rue Basic Bitch. It was a rhubarb vodka soda, essentially.
Right.
But yeah, we put...
That's dope, man. I mean, it's just a small thing, that's really a big thing.
It's the little touches.
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff.
Chad hooks up the menu, like, we'll go over, like, different, like, emoji and stuff to put on there. Like, is this too aggressive? No, put it on there.
I think you guys have an old-fashioned on the menu, but then you have the whiskey old-fashioned, too.
Yep,
What's
we have
the
two.
difference between it? One has brandy in it, right?
Yeah, like our regular old fashioned is a split base between bourbon and Spanish brandy, and I mean our reasoning for that is we just think that it helps to round it out, and I mean an old fashioned you can make with any spirit, so we thought that was our way of doing an old fashioned in a more unique sense, where if it's I'm not saying an all bourbon old fashioned is bad by any means. However, we think that the two complement each other better than, separately.
They complement extremely well.
The whiskey old fashioned is a little different, and the idea here was I've always gotten a lot of inspiration from this one introductory sentence in the Flavor Bible, and it's basically explaining a story of how they're trying to make the perfect chocolate chip cookie. And the question was, how do we make cookies taste more like cookies? The answer for it was they made a batch of cookies and then they dehydrated them and powdered them and then used the cookie powder in place of flour to make the next batch of cookies, which I thought was really cool. And I go back and think about that a lot. So this cocktail was, how do you make an old fashioned taste more like an old fashioned? So old fashioned's bitters, some sort of sugar, and then a spirit. What we do is we take the Rittenhouse rye whiskey as the spirit in it, and then we'll take Rittenhouse rye whiskey and everything else that makes whiskey, so malted rye, malted barley, and malted wheat, and we'll actually cook the alcohol out of the Rittenhouse, and then we'll reduce that with all those other grains, and then we'll add sugar to that, and that becomes a sweetening portion. So in the sense is you're just bringing out more of the whiskey flavor, and you're infusing it a little bit more, and you're adding this like thickness to it. So when you get this cocktail, it's cloudy because it has so many just different dissolved oils and flavor compounds and so on and so forth. So
it's crazy.
Hence the whiskey.
I don't think I've had that one yet, but I'll get it next time I come here.
Definitely.
I had the regular old fashioned. You made that for me last time I was here. So I have one more question, man. We're going to talk about some shoes in a couple seconds because this is whiskey and kicks. I want to read this to you guys, and I want you to tell me how you feel about it. A mixologist definition: a person who is skilled at mixing cocktails and other drinks. Bartender: a person who mixes and serves alcoholic drinks at a bar. How do you guys feel about mixologist and bartender and the difference?
I mean, my honest, I don't care what you want to call it. Call you someone you want to call. I think mixologist, for a long time, it became a term that it had a pretentious air to it, but I think you always have to get down to what people are really trying to get across. And I think most of the time when people are saying it, they're trying to be okay, you're a cocktail bartender. I don't think people mean poorly by it by any means. And then I think you have some young people in the game that are like, oh no, I don't want you to think of me as just a bartender because I learned how to make a 3-ingredient drink properly for the first time, and I think I need a badge of honor for it. So I think some of the young kids in the game want to use it as that title because they don't have a title of their own already. So whatever, be proud of what you do. So I guess that's kind of cool too. But at the end of the day, I mean, whatever. It's the same name for the same job, and I mean, it's both of those definitions are missing the most important part of the job, and that's taking care of people. For sure. So I think under mixologist or bartender, I think caretaker should be the primary definition of it if you really wanted to get into defining the role.
Cocktail caretakers.
But
Cocktail caretakers.
Yeah.
That's a new thing. Pretty dope.
What do you think about it? Yeah.
I'm going to go another place and I'm going to double back. But I mean, I was, as a person that was a bartender before, then started learning more about alcohol to the point where, I can make recipes and then I'm still executing drinks. From my perspective, at, a certain point, a mixologist creates recipes like a chef. A bartender executes drinks. They execute recipes like a chef and a cook. Cook has a recipe, they make the dish. Mixologist, chef, they come up with a recipe, they create it, they do the R&D, they prepare. And that's kind of where I saw the transition before. But I mean, if you ask me what my occupation is, I'm a bartender.
I can dig it.
Always.
I respect it, man. I love it.
And I never tell you. I would never say, "Hey, I'm a mixologist."
Oh yeah, I would never say that.
I don't even tell people I own. I don't tell people I own this bar. I just tell people I bartend here. I'm a bartender. I still bartend. We will never stop.
Yeah, I like it, man. I mean, shit, when I came here last time, and I'm like, okay, well, I gotta find Glendon. Oh, he's not here. And I'm here all night sitting at this table right here. And by the end of the night, I'm like, okay, well, let me check out and everything. So this guy's like, so how do you know Glendon? I'm like, well, I do this podcast. And we talked about doing this podcast. He's like, oh, yeah, he told me about that. I'm Chad. I'm one of the owners here. And I'm like, the whole night, he's waiting on my table the whole night. So I respect that shit. You know what I mean? I just sitting back watching the guys work. The guys are in it and getting your hands dirty, too.
We love doing it.
Yeah, so
it's fun for us, and we love giving service to people.
Yeah,
hence service bar.
Service bar. I didn't even ask about the name. Is that really the kind of the name, or what's behind the name?
It's twofold. So originally, the concept that we had for service bar was a place where you would literally walk in and you would see the bartenders here, but you wouldn't see anything else. Like the bartenders wouldn't make you drinks. The bartenders would just engage with you, talk to you, see what you want. Essentially, they're like servers. They're maitre d's, essentially. So you're out here, they would never make a drink for you unless they're pouring a beer or something. When you order a drink, it would be made by people working in the service bar behind a wall, essentially. And then we would serve the drink through the wall to the bartender. They'd give it to you. When we were coming up, yeah, it would be pretty cool. Like, you have the two maitre d's. They don't have to make anything, so they're not super busy and jammed up. Yeah. They're talking to you. They're helping whatever's going on the floor.
Which I just want to interject. That was not the concept for this place.
Definitely
This was like, before this was even a thing, we had a concept called service bar in our heads.
Completely
and that's what this was. Yeah, it wasn't like for this space per se, but...
So we own a company called the Menehune Group. Menehune are like these Polynesian deities. It's kind of like a tiki kind of thing, but we're not a tiki bar. So the idea for this place was, the original name we were going to call it was the Menehune Cocktail Room. MCR.
I was like, I'm not explaining what the Menehune is to every guest that walks in the door.
Like, people are gonna ask me this all the time, which it makes sense. But I figured we'd have like a little snippet in the menu, like when you open it. Oh, Menehune. This is what a Menehune is.
Read up on it. Right?
But there's also a classic cocktail called Menehune Juice, which is rum, Cointreau, and blah blah blah. But in reality, some friends of ours opened a tiki bar about 2 blocks away called Archipelago, and they opened about 8 months to a year before us.
Something like that, yeah.
And obviously, we would be down the street with like a tiki name, but we're not really a tiki bar. But we have some tiki cocktails, which would be another thing that Chad would have to explain to people. So, I love working service bar. Like, service bar is the part of the bar where you don't talk to the bartender. The bartender's literally just making drinks for tables to give to servers. And that was always my favorite place because I love working in high volume and just putting stuff out. So that's why when we got down to it, we were thinking of different names, and it was actually Kevin, who's our maitre d', who had the concept and the name Service Bar.
I thought it was incredible that the name hadn't been taken really by anyone else yet. Like, we have our trademark and stuff out for it now, but there's a service bar in every restaurant, so we thought that it had a personal connection to everyone that does work there. And one of our other pieces of the conversation was, when you're working service bar, it's like a thankless environment because, as he said, you're there just making drinks for servers, for tickets for tables and stuff.
Yeah. You don't see a guest. No one sees you make anything.
If you watch us make the drink, right, and you see all the work that gets put into it, and you see the liquid nitrogen and so on and so forth, before you even taste it, you're like, oh man, this is gonna be awesome.
Right.
If you're at a table and it's busy, you're like, I don't see anyone making my drink, so now I feel like it's taking a lot longer, even if it's not.
Right.
And no matter what, it is gonna take a little longer because even if it's just me putting the drink up, someone grabbing it and bringing it to a table, well, that took an extra minute.
Right.
Just that one step. So regardless, at the table, like, the drink has to be even more perfect.
Right.
And you, as a bartender, if you're a lazy bartender, the service bar is where you slack because you don't have to have that personal interaction, right? You don't have to. You don't have to face the executioner. Yeah. You don't have to face the executioner if the drink sucks. So if you're there and you're making crappy drinks, it's going out to the table, then it's just like, it's the one area that can really make or break a place. And that was what we would always train on the consulting side. We're like, look, you have the personal connection at the bar to like win the drink program over, even if people aren't loving it. At the table, there's no winning anyone over, right? They're probably already a little upset with their server at some point anyway because of the kitchen took too long.
People are hungry when they get there.
Yeah, there's a fingerprint on the glass or something.
I think that Chad and I always shared a similar interest in making drinks that come out of service bars when we're producing them look extra presentable,
right?
Because when you're at a table and someone presents you with something, you're like, oh shit, it's like a gift. It's like a Christmas gift every time they get it, because it's like coming out of nowhere. It's like magic.
Order it.
Yeah, because they didn't see you make it, so it's like, oh, I just pulled this out, like one of those old Warner Brothers cartoons. They're just pulling stuff out of their back. It's like magic.
Sledgehammer out your back.
So we're always big on like huge presentation from service bar because you get it and it's literally like magic. And
how long have you guys been open?
year and 3.5 months.
Dope, man. You guys gonna do like an anniversary thing, 2 years or something, every year?
We did a huge 1 year
crazy
anniversary.
1 year
which
anniversary
was
party.
legit.
Yeah, I don't want to talk
I
about
don't know if a 2 year is something for us to.
Maybe 5 or something.
Oh
maybe
no! I
5.
think we've got to make it the annual service bar party. That
It
was
might
lit.
be. Yeah,
It was so much
legit.
fun. I couldn't believe so many. I mean, we did it on a Monday night, and so many people came out, and I mean, it wasn't like it was great weather or anything,
Right,
and it was in
It was
Union
legit.
Market, which. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love Union Market, but it's not like it was
Oh, you guys didn't do
around
it here?
We didn't do it.
Okay,
Oh.
gotcha.
We
We
couldn't have
invited
fit-
a lot.
A lot
Yeah.
of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys do like 55 capacity, something like that.
Here
Seat
it's
40, something like that?
40
Let's
capacity.
say if this is on YouTube, 40 people.
40 people.
For sure. We'll leave it at that. All right, Chad. So, what's your approach to shoes, man? You know, you big sneakerhead, shoes, cowboy boots, flip flops. What is it?
Cowboy
So,
boots.
I'll
yeah.
put it this way: if I had a lot more money, I would be way more into shoes. As far as I've always been like, I love Nike sneakers. Nike
Yeah.
sneakers has always like kind of been my go-to. I've been more recently going for the like higher end, trying to build the dress shoe collection.
Yeah.
So my girlfriend's actually a stylist, so
Okay.
I let her handle most of the like actual
No doubt.
shopping for it. So she'll like go. I'll tell her what I want. She'll pick me out a bunch of stuff, and then I'll say, all right, like.
She didn't pick this out.
So on and so forth. she did not. No.
You fly, man. You know what I'm saying? You
No,
get
I mean the ones I have on right now are some Nike SBs that I got a little while ago.
Okay.
I love those, but yeah, I think that,
comfort for sure.
yeah, well then
Hell
like
yeah.
in style too. I mean my feet don't look good in like skinny shoes. Like I can't wear Converse or anything that's like that low, that small. My feet are just like wide. So
Oh, you got a
I
wide
need,
foot, yeah.
I need like a little bit more support, and that's why I've always kind of dug the Nikes because they'll always have that. They always fit. They always look good. I'm just a thick dude in general, so like my ankles are thick. So if I get this little rinky-dink shoe, it looks like I have cankles.
Cankles.
And like my calf is like falling off over onto the shoe. So I think
Rocking the
that
cankles.
kind of the way it forms always plays a big factor. But I mean, I can't say I'm a huge sneakerhead, but I do love the shoes that I have.
If you're going out on a date with your lady, man, what are you putting on your feet?
Yeah, well, it matters what I'm putting up top first.
I can dig that.
The last thing I wore were some black dress shoes by Two Boot. From a guy out of New York, but
Okay.
that was for Valentine's Day dinner, so those were a little bit of the extra fancy. Time
dude.
before that, some Jack Irwins. I have these custom ones I got in Vegas a few years ago that I like to wear from time to time. But
The
if
velvet
it's just
ones?
like
The blue ones?
no, those ones I got in Milan actually.
Wait a minute. You have blue velvet shoes?
They're not velvet.
Okay.
they're suede, but yeah.
Blue
Okay.
suede,
You
blue
got
suede shoes.
I actually
Yeah.
have two pairs of blue suede shoes.
They're
I got
legit.
a high top pair and then a low top pair, but the low tops I got in Milan, and those are dope. I've been wearing those for years, and but I wear clay high tops just casually, probably the most.
Yeah?
Like going out and around. Yeah.
I own a few pair of those.
Nice.
Okay, yeah, they've improved on their product quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Which ones?
The clay high tops, the navy
Oh,
blue high
clay,
tops that
yeah.
I wear a lot.
I like clay.
Yeah, I got in there-
I had some
with
low
them.
tops in them.
Yeah, I had some low tops with them a long time ago, man. Those things killed my feet, but they've improved
Yeah.
over the years. So that's dope, though, man. Everyone has a shoe story, I'm telling
Yeah.
you. No matter what. So what about you, man? What we got over here? You're a sneakerhead.
I was a huge sneakerhead back in the day. I went to school to design shoes.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to be Tinker Hatfield back in the day, and myself and my friends were always into sneakers. We started a shoe club at my school, at my high school, with more members than any other club in the entire school. So we had about 50 members to start and bumped up to 60 or 70. So during college, my friends and I worked at shoe stores, and you get a discount, and literally spent all of our money on shoes.
Right.
So every 2 weeks, I knew I was getting X amount. It's like, what's
Right.
coming out in the next 2 weeks? So I would buy them, I'd save them, hide my shoes somewhere else, which eventually led me to getting fired from said job. Because you're not supposed to hide shoes. I mean, I bought them, but I was hiding them in different
Right.
places because I did all the stock.
Right.
So I organized the entire stock room. So went to college for making shoes, and which kind of led me to fall in love with alcohol. But I also went to like a shoemaking school in Arizona.
How do those two things
Wait a
relate?
minute.
Really?
Wait a minute. So you went to college for making shoes, which led to you falling in love with alcohol. Please explain that.
So I I couldn't get a job in New York, so I couldn't live in New York, and I didn't want to live like in Flatbush with my family, and then schlep it to school all the time. So I was still working in DC and going to school in New York every week.
Wow.
Which I loved, which was fine, but I was like, why is no one hiring me? I need to know more about this job. So every time I do something, I need to know every single thing about it.
Sure.
I'm taking chemistry classes right now to learn more about what we're doing in our job now. But I wanted to learn more about alcohol, which that's what led me down here.
Gotcha.
But all the while, I still have this stockpile of shoes,
Right.
like forever. So I had over 100 pairs of shoes, and I moved to Miami because I was like, it was my last shot at, I'm going to be a fashion designer. I'm going to go down to Miami. I'm going to do that. And that's actually before I went to New York. But while I was in Miami, I had a storage unit up here, and just kind of let it lapse when you're 17, 18. You're worried about what's happening right now, not some shit that's happening somewhere else. And so I came back to the DC area literally about a week before they sold my storage unit. And I went there, I called them one morning. Literally, it's like the saddest story ever, because I called them that morning, like, hey, I owe you about $500. Like, I want to come and pay it, or can I just pay it over the phone? And they're like, what's the unit? Told them the unit, and they're like, oh, like, I'm very sorry. Like, we sold that unit this morning. Like, it was auctioned off this morning. Yeah, it's the last time I cried as an adult.
Yeah, I would've
so I lost all those. I think I wore them each. I tried them on at least once, but most of them were never worn, like the ones I have here.
Damn, that would have hurt, man.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
That's a few years.
He still has a lot of shoes. We live together, and you'd go into Glenn's room and be like, why are all your clothes in the main room? It's because his closet had no
common area.
I don't even know if there were shoes in the boxes. There might have just been empty shoe boxes occupying the entirety of the closet.
There's shoes everywhere.
That's crazy, dude. Man, that's
if you walk into my house now, there's shoes lining the steps up, and then I have
That's
shoes
funny as hell,
around
dude.
here.
So what'd you bring?
I brought my babies, man. I brought these guys.
Ooh, buddy.
Remember back in the day watching like MTV Cribs, and you were going through what's this? I forgot his name. Terror Squad, dude. His shoe collection.
Fat Joe?
Fat Joe. And all his shoes. He was like, you can lick the bottom, man. They're fresh, like never been worn, dude. Like these are my babies, and all my boys got them.
That's the Easter egg.
Yeah,
Air Force One.
Those are the first ones. They had, I think, 2 more Air Force One Easters after that.
Patent leather.
Yeah.
All the way around, man. That's a beautiful sneaker, man.
And then these guys, just because like my boys knew I wanted them, and I wanted them forever, and my boys helped me grab these. They got them for me from another place, from another state,
And these are.
and brought them back. These are the Foam Posit Maxes. Yeah.
This is before they changed the design. Oh, okay, yeah, the Max and then the foam positive.
Yeah, this is the second version. The first version had the little, kind of like a hologram thing going on here, but, I'm happy just to get these. But, I've had both of these for over a decade, and a few others.
You haven't worn these either?
Nope.
Man, that's something else.
They're 9.5, man. What's your size, dude?
9.
9? Yeah.
Look at that, man. That's fantastic, man. I mean, I'm sorry for your loss with your sneakers and everything in the storage unit. That's crazy, but I'm glad you guys shared these stories with me.
Yeah,
today.
definitely,
man.
Thanks for having us on.
For sure, man. This has been great, man. I've learned a lot for a place that I've come to and drink so much booze at. I've learned a lot today. So, anything you want to say to the people, man, as far as Service Bar is concerned?
I want to bring up one thing. 2 things. Please come to Service Bar. Thank you. Love you. But we're also doing a thing every other month where we focus on a specific spirit. It's called Brandy Cocktail Room. The next one we're doing it with is Hennessy, and we'll have someone doing tastes, and we do this every other month, and we're making specific cocktails with that spirit.
Okay.
So Hennessy, and then we have some Pisco ones coming up, some Armagnac stuff, and
Yeah, cool. We do a ton of special events all the time in addition to that, so just follow us on Instagram. It's at ServiceBarDC, or go to our website, servicebardc.com. Your first page that comes up, you could sign up for our email list. So any of the special events that we have going on, we'll send out an email blast. Mostly Instagram is the easiest way to kind of see the here and now, because we'll do a lot of last-minute events.
For sure.
The other week we had an oyster shucker come like the day of.
it was awesome.
Shuck free oysters
was
for
pretty
everyone,
awesome.
so it's kind of hard to do like a fully conceived plan to blast it out. So
Right.
I think that if you focus on our Instagram, we're always doing something super fun here. A lot of people don't know that we do have a full kitchen. Our kitchen's open from 5 o'clock until 1:30 a.m.
The
every
fried
day.
chicken is phenomenal.
Last
Yeah.
call, food every night. This should
Always
be your
open
last
till
stop.
last call, open till 4 a.m. on holiday weekends when we can. So last night we were open till 4 a.m., always pumping. We do live jazz on Tuesdays from 9 until 12. On Sundays from 2 till 6, we have a DJ for our brunch when we open. Right now we're doing Ski Lodge Sundays, so we do a bunch of like hot drinks. We put like flannel sheets on the back and a bunch of pillows and stuff. So
We
we're
always
just-
have a seasonal cocktail menu that goes week to 2 weeks, depending on what seasonal ingredients we can get.
For sure.
That's all the time.
Yeah.
That's dope, man. Well, I appreciate you
Cool.
guys, man.
Hell yeah,
Chat.
Rocky.
It's
Such a
been
pleasure,
great,
man.
Absolutely.
Rocky, thank you.
Glendon, I appreciate you guys, man. Love you guys. Love the service bar. And that's a wrap, man. Whiskey and Kicks. See you next time.
All right, cool. See ya.
Vessel.